In this last part of the notes, we have to take the three numbers that are listed here, and they are the zeros or the roots of the polynomial. Using those zeros or roots, we are going to write the polynomial function. So we take it back to the beginning. Remember, we found our zeros or our roots because we had, here we go, we had solved the equation and found that x was equal to 3, and x was equal to -1, and x was equal to 2. So we're literally like working backwards from the zeros to the factors, and we do that by setting each of those zeros equal to x, and then we are going to take each of those little equations and solve them or set them equal to 0. So to set the first one equal to 0, we'll subtract 3 from both sides, leaving us with x minus 3 equals 0. In the second, we'll add 1 to both sides, leaving us with x plus 1 equals 0. And in the third, we will subtract 2 from both sides, leaving us with x minus 2 equals 0. Now this should look a lot more like the factors, and we're going to go ahead and use them as factors and start to write the function. Okay, so our function will be built from our factors, x minus 3, x plus 1, and x minus 2. All right, so now we have our factors all set up, and now we have to multiply them to get to our actual polynomial function. When you're multiplying, it's a good practice to just take the first two and multiply those together. That's going to give us, you're going to FOIL that out, and when you're foiling and combining like terms is all complete, you'll get x squared minus 2x minus 3. Now, you'll probably do that in more steps than I just did, but in the interest of time, that's the product of the first two. Then we're going to come along and pick up the third factor, which is x minus 2, and then we'll multiply again. And multiplying is going to, we're going to have to distribute all three terms in the first parentheses to the two terms in the second parentheses. So before I combine my like terms, I'll have 6 total terms that I'll be working with. So distributing the x squared, we get x to the third minus 2x squared. Now distribute the negative 2x. That will give us a negative 2x squared plus 4x, and distribute the negative 3. Negative 3x plus 6. And then finally, we'll combine all of our like terms, and there is only one x to the third term. There are two x squared terms, and they'll combine to give us minus 4x squared. There are two x terms, and that'll give us plus 1x, or just plus x, and then plus the 6. And now we have a polynomial that has the zeros that we were given in the beginning. All right, next example. This time our zeros look a little bit different. We have a 0 of 0, and we have a 0 that is a fraction, but we're going to start the same way. So we first of all set x equal to 0. Our other 0 is 5, so x equals 5, and our third is x equals 1/2. Now we're going to take each of these and set them equal to 0. So the first one is already 0, which means that we have our first factor for our polynomial function. Then we'll subtract the 5 from both sides here, and that gives us x minus 5 equals 0. Working backwards from the zeros to give us the factors so that we can multiply and get our polynomial. And then with our third 0, the x equals 1/2, we're going to solve this by first multiplying both sides by 2. We're not actually solving it, we're setting it equal to 0, so we have a factor. And that'll give us 2x equals 1, and then when we subtract 1 from both sides, we end up with 2x. Whoops. Subtracting 1 from both sides will give us 2x minus 1 equals 0. And there's our third factor. 2x minus 1 is our third factor. All right, now it's time to start multiplying. We are going to multiply. I say we distribute the x first, we get a result, and then we take that and multiply it by the 2x minus 1. So distributing that x gives us x squared minus 5x. And now we'll continue to distribute the x squared. And that will give us 2x to the third. Distribute the x squared again. So minus x squared. We're done with the x squared. We have to distribute the negative 5x. That'll give us a negative 10x squared and a positive 5x. Combining the like terms, our like terms are the x squared terms, and they'll combine to give us a minus 11x squared, and then the plus 5x. And there we have a polynomial function that has the 3 zeros that we were given in the beginning. And if you want to double check this, all you have to do is go out to Desmos and graph the resulting polynomial function, and you will find that that function crosses the x-axis at these zeros. 0, 1/2, and 5. I'm just kind of estimating where those are. It's a positive, and so the function that you will see on Desmos is going to look something like that. I can't guarantee that the dips are correct. They probably are wrong, but I do know that the x-intercept will be right on at 0, at 1/2, and at 5. All right, let's look at the next example. The next example deals with some, a 0 that is an imaginary number. Now, when we have an imaginary number as a 0, these things travel as conjugates. So if positive 3i is a 0, negative 3i is also a 0. So while only 2 were listed, there are actually 3 because the imaginary and rationals or irrationals travel in pairs or conjugates. All right, so we'll take our 3 zeros now and set them equal to x. So x is equal to 3i, x is equal to 2, and x is equal to negative 3i. So our factors are x minus 3i, x minus 2, and x plus 3i. All right, so we have f of x is the name of our function, and the factors are x minus 3i. I'm going to write the two imaginary factors right next to one another because we're going to multiply those first. Let's clean up the board a little. All right. And then when we finish multiplying our imaginary factors, we will multiply that result by the x minus 2. Okay, we are going to FOIL the first two factors. Those first two factors, being that they are conjugates, when we multiply those conjugates, the I is going to go away. So, and this is actually the sum or rather the difference of squares. Let's just multiply it all the way out and you'll see the terms cancel. But x times x gives us x squared, and then x times 3i gives us a positive 3xi. Negative 3i times x is negative 3xi. And then negative 3 times negative or positive 3 would give us a negative 9. And then I times I is I squared. That's a really strange looking I. Let me fix that. Okay, that's a little better. All right, now you notice the middle terms are both, they're opposites of one another. So the 3xi and the negative 3xi cancel, leaving us with x squared minus 9. And remember, I squared can be replaced with negative 1. So that leaves us with the factor of x squared plus 9. And the other factor, x minus 2. Now we can finish our polynomial function by distributing the x squared. And that's going to give us x squared. I just lied to you, x to the third minus 2x squared, distribute the 9 now, plus 9x minus 18. And there are no like terms to combine, so we have our final answer. All right, one more example. All right, in this particular problem, we have an irrational root. 1 plus the square root of 2 is an irrational root. And so because 1 plus the square root of 2 is a root, so is its conjugates. These things travel in pairs. They all come from the quadratic formula, which gives us pairs. All right, so we have our factors. X is equal to 1 plus the square root of 2, x is equal to 4, x is equal to negative 1, and x is equal to 1 minus the square root of 2. So there are 4 roots here, so we should be ending up in our final answer will be a polynomial with a degree of 4. All right, so let's find our factors. So to find our factors, we are going to have to subtract 1 and the square root of 2 from both sides of this equation. Leaves us with x minus 1 minus the square root of 2 equals 0. And that then is one of our factors. It's not pretty, but we can work with it. The next is going to come from subtracting the 4 from both sides. So we have x minus 4 equals 0. We'll add the 1 to both sides. X plus 1 equals 0. And then we'll subtract 1 and add the square root of 2 to both sides. So we get x minus 1 plus the square root of 2 equals 0. I purposely did not write my two factors of x minus 4 and x minus 1 because I want to get the x minus 1 plus the square root of 2 in there. And then we'll follow it up with the following two factors. The remaining two factors, x minus 4 and x plus 1. Now you're going to have to very patiently distribute the first two factors, then the same with the second two factors, and when we get those multiplied, we can finally multiply one more time. All right, so we've got to distribute the x squared. That'll give us x squared minus, or distributing the x, that gives us x squared minus x plus x root 2. When we distribute the negative 1, we have minus x plus 1 minus root 2. And then distributing the negative root 2, we have negative x root 2 plus root 2, and then negative root 2 times the positive root 2 is just minus 2. Look for your like terms. Actually, before you even look for like terms, identify those terms with radicals. See how we have a positive x root 2 and a negative x root 2? They cancel out. We've also got a negative root 2 and a positive root 2, and they'll add to 0 or cancel out. So we have x squared, and if there's only one x squared term, there are two x terms. That'll give us minus 2x, and then there are two constants, the positive 1 and the negative 2, give us a negative 1. All right, that was a lot of work to get that one factor, and we're still not done because we have not yet multiplied our x minus 4 and our x plus 1. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply that. You might take more steps than I will, but in the interest of time, I'm going to multiply that out. That's going to give us a minus 4 over here, and our middle term will come from our outers and our inners. That's a positive 1x and a negative 4x, so minus 3x. And then the last step is to complete the multiplication, and I'm running out of room here, so I will do my best. You're going to get x squared times x squared is, x to the 4th. X squared times negative 3 is negative 3x to the 3rd. X squared times negative 4 is minus 4x squared. Then we'll distribute the negative 2. Negative 2x to the 3rd plus 6x squared plus 8x, and then distribute the negative 1. Negative x squared plus 3x plus 4. And we're not quite done. I think I still can squeeze in the combining like terms. There's only one x to the 4th term. There are 2x to the 3rd terms. And I know that if I make a mistake here, you'll let me know when I see you on Thursday. Our x squared terms, there are 3x squared terms. And it looks like when we combine those, we get plus x squared. And our x terms, there's a positive 8x and a positive 3x. So positive 11x. And then there's only one constant, positive 4. And there we did it. We squeezed it in there at the end, but we've got our polynomial function that has the zeros that were given to us in the beginning. All right, so you have a homework assignment. Right down there. There's a selection of problems that you'll probably have no problem with, and we'll get together on Thursday and work out any questions. You guys have a great rest of the day.